Hi, you're listening to the IoTForge News Digest. I'm Pavel Korshunov. It's Tuesday, August 19, 2025, and this is episode 16. In this episode, we move far beyond the hobby corner of 3D printing. From LAIKA's Oscar-winning replacement animation technique to surgeons rehearsing operations on 3D printing heads, to the wild world of 5-axis printers and Arduino's big bet on ZephyrOS. The frontier of making is shifting again. We'll also peek into the latest Home Assistant release, where AI moves from novelty into full-bloom automation. Let's get started. In past episodes, we've talked about 3D printing in factories, in hospitals, on construction sites, and of course, the endless DIY projects. But here's the thing, we have just scratched the surface. The possibilities are limitless. One talk really drives this home. It's a TEDx talk by McLean, LAIKA's director of rapid prototyping. You know LAIKA, Caroline, Kudu, Missing Link. McLean actually won a scientific and engineering Oscar back in 2016 for pioneering 3D printing in stop motion. Now, this talk isn't only about printers. It's about curiosity, about chasing an idea until it opens a door you didn't even know existed. Think about it, from the science of climation, from the principle of persistence of vision, you get to reinventing stop motion, and from there it keeps unfolding. Here's funny part, McLean wasn't a tech guy, computers scared him. But then a job at a design school introduced him to 3D printing. And that changed everything. Remember, 20 years ago, printers weren't the desktop gadgets we know today. They were massive, unreliable, so expensive, only research labs and big design studios could touch them. And then LAIKA did something wild. They invented replacement animation. Instead of rendering faces in software like Disney or Pixar, they printed them. Thousands of tiny faces pieces. A smile, a blink, a frown. Swap them out frame by frame. Play it back at 24 frames per second, and suddenly a puppet comes alive. And here's where it gets really crazy. What started as puppet faces can become something far bigger. Like 3D printing an exact model of a human head from CT scans, tumor and all. So a surgeon can rehearse a delicate operation before touching the patient. The first time I heard that, I was speechless. From there, the tech kept evolving. First, single material prints, hand-painted by artists. Gorgeous, but slow. Then, color jet printers, adding color right in the machine. Next, polyjet high resolution, multi-material, multicolor right of the tray. And finally, voxel printing, controlling color and material at the tiniest possible level. That's still far beyond anything we can do with consumer printers today. I won't spoil the whole talk. Honestly, you should just watch it. Grab a coffee, sit down for 20 minutes, and let Brian walk you through it. It is art. It's physics. It's pure magic. And here's the takeaway. Our brains are wired to imagine, so take that as cue. Find the unexpected use for your printer. Maybe it's a puppet face, maybe it's a medical model, maybe it's something the world hasn't seen yet. And speaking of the world not seeing it yet, let me introduce you to something that really bends the rules of desktop 3D printing. It's called Fractal 5 Pro, not your regular printer. This one's open source, 5-axis, and built to print from multiple directions at once. No more forests of support structures. No more fragile layer seams. Just stronger parts, printed faster and cleaner. The hardware is a clever hybrid. Off-the-shelf components, 3D printed pieces, and a gimbal platform with rotating A and B axes. A slip ring lets the platform spin endlessly without tangling wires. add in a band-tagged direct drive, E3D Olcana hot end, and clippy firmware running on a Raspberry Pi. And you've got serious performance at about $1,900 in parts. But here's the thing. Hardware alone doesn't solve it. 5-axis printer needs 5-axis slicing. And that's where Fractal Cortex comes in. It's a brand new open source slicer designed to handle this multidirectional toolpath. You load an STL, set multiple slicing planes, check for collisions, preview the toolpath, and boom, expert G-code. And if you want, you can still switch back to traditional 3-axis mode. Okay, for now, it is not perfect. Cortex is fresh, still missing advanced features like supports and optimizations. But the vision is clear. Bring the power of 5-axis printing down to the desktop. Open the doors for researchers, educators, and makers. So, just like LAIKA turned printers into animation tools, Fractal Robotics is turning them into true 5-axis manufacturing tools. The big question is, will this open source approach finally make multidirectional printing mainstream? And speaking of other wild experiments in 3D printing, Robert Murray Smith is playing with a whole new kind of motion system. Instead of bells and gears, he's got a round printing platform spun by a friction drive. Kind of like a polar printer, but without the usual gear backlash. But friction drives love to sleep. And if you want smooth, accurate prints, you need closed-loop control, some kind of feedback that checks if the motion really matches the command. And here's a clever twist. Instead of pricey industrial sensors, Robert just grabbed an Arduino and a cheap optical mouse with a PS2 interface. You can easily get one on eBay for $8. Take it apart and look inside. That little optical sensor takes snapshot of surface hundreds of times a second, tracks pixel shifts, and spits out movement data. Perfect for feedback. And why PS2 instead of USB? Because PS2 pushes movement events directly to the microcontroller. No pulling, no delay. USB, on the other hand, needs to be constantly pulled, which adds complexity and can cause you to miss tiny shifts. For real-time feedback, PS2 is a beautiful, simple, low-latency choice. Hooking it up is that simple. 2 pins on the Arduino for clock and data, plus a library to parse coordinates. Suddenly, you've got a Lee feedback loop, correcting errors on the fly. Cheap, hacky, but it works. So yeah, Robert built a closed-loop 3D printer with a mouse. Brilliant. If you are into this kind of inventing hacking, check out his YouTube channel. All the links will be in the podcast notes. Okay, enough about 3D printing for now. Since we already touched on Arduino in the last bit, let's check what's new in their world. Arduino just took another step in the beta program where they're moving cores over to Zephyr operation system. If you remember, some boards used to run on embeddOS, but ARM dropped it, so Arduino had to look for something more alive, more modern. Zephyr fit the bill. It's an open, real-time operating system, super active community, multitasking, scheduling, scalability, all the serious stuff, but wrapped in that easy Arduino style. And here's how it feels in practice. Your sketch doesn't just flash directly anymore. It compiles into an ELF file and then gets loaded into pre-flashed Zephyr firmware. Underneath, it's not magic. It's Zephyr doing its thing with threads, inter-process communication, real-time scheduler. And compiles still fast because Zephyr core itself is already built. You're only compiling your code and the libraries you put in. Now, they just bumped the Zephyr core to version 0.3.2. That means fresh support for some peripherals, cameras, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth Low Energy, and few shields. And yes, it's moving forward. But here comes the regret. For now, it's just 5 Arduino boards on their support list. That is it. And honestly, if you look at what Zephyr already supports natively, Nordic and RF series, ESP32s, tons of STM32s, even RISC-V boards, you start to wonder, what's the real advantages of Arduino's flavor on Zephyr right now? That said, this is a chance to get involved. Arduino is asking folks to test, break things, send feedbacks, shape the future. Which means, if you jump in now, you are not just coding another Blink sketch. You are helping decide what Arduino on Zephyr is going to look like. And of course, this digest just won't be complete without the August release of Home Assistant. Let's rewind for a second. Back in 2023, the community dipped its toes into AI with the very first integration. You could route your Home Assistant voice through OpenAI. From there, things snowballed. People started doing everything from goofy laundry notification to analyzing what's happening on camera feeds to even auto-skipping song if the AI thought it sounded too much like country. Fast forward to today. August brings a brand new feature called AI Task. Think of it like a universal adapter between your smart home and whatever AI you choose. You create an AI task, it shows up as an entry, and suddenly you can hand it a file or a live camera feed and just ask, "Hey, what's happening here?" The AI can reply in plain text, or it can format its answer as a structured, data-ready to drop straight into your automations. There is even a dedicated action, AI task that generate data, so you can plug this right into scripts and templates, as easily as you'd call the LightOS sensor. Now, I couldn't resist. I had to try it out in my own setup. And here's the fun part. I wired this into a Texas Instruments Silent 700 module 707 data terminal. This beast from the 80s, basically a portable tape writer with a modem, suddenly came alive as my smart home command center. I could type in "turn on the light," and it did. Or I could freeform ask, "what's the state of the humidifier?" And it answered back on that old school thermal paper. Pure sci-fi vibes. I promise I will do a full-length review of that experiment soon. But here's the biggest point. Not everybody wants AI in their living room, and that's fair. The Home Assistant team made sure these features are totally opt-in. Unless you configure an AI integration, none of these show up in your system. And as always, the release packs plenty more fixes, improvements, new integrations. I'll drop a link to the full release notes down below in the podcast notes. And that wraps up this episode of the IoTForge News Digest. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the links in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, so you never miss the next dive into the future of IoT, smart homes, and 3D printing. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep building and stay curious.